Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast, where we've got a bumper weekend in store for you. 9 races coming your way, a few of them Group 1 contests. We're going to cast our attention to Sunday as well, though we don't have official declarations yet, but we'll have a couple of races, a look at those on Sunday. 7 races for you on Saturday, 7 of them terrestrial races that will be shown on ITV between Sandown and Aintree. I love this day of the year. It just got something for everyone, I think, as far as the handicaps go. First time we're over the national fences as well. Micheál Deasy is with us in the Matchbook office, as you can see, unless you've got some fancy wallpaper, Deasy. I assume you're office bound. He's going to unmute himself right about now. There we go.
This is my first day back in the office since March. So it was great to be in here, and yeah, very excited. This is a brilliant weekend's racing, so really looking forward to it.
Proper weekend. Now, Donn, you've had slightly less time than us to get stuck into this. So just the 9 races. I'm sure you've got 9 winners for us.
Yeah, 9, easy peasy. Yeah, but these weekends are great, aren't they? Like, everyone talks about Cheltenham, obviously, and Cheltenham is obviously fantastic. But you just love these weekends, from all the way from the Cheltenham November meeting to now, and the Tingle Creek, Durkan Chase, kicking on up to the long walk. Like all these, Becher Chase last weekend. All these weekends, it's deep national hunt racing, isn't it? With just depth of quality all over the place.
I love it. And what's so great is, I mean, I'm not going to be at Sandown for the first time, I think, in about 5 years for the Tingle Creek. But it's so good at that screen you get there, because everyone watches the Becher and the Grand Sefton and all those races on that screen before turning their attention back to the paddock. And there's going to be some crowds there as well, which is fantastic news. Jonesy, you've been in great form. You've just been banging in the winners for us. So thank you for that, first of all. I might even listen to you this week.
Thanks, mate. Yeah. It's when it's going well, you're always waiting for it to turn and go badly wrong. So hopefully keep going till Christmas at least.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. You can keep flying along. Now, by all means, we'd love you to take our content survey as far as Matchbook goes. We like to think of ourselves as a community here with regular listeners across all of our different sports, and you can take the Matchbook content survey, where there's plenty of questions for you to answer for us, and we want you to be completely honest. Where can we improve? You can say anything you like, you can say anything you don't like. Be honest, be open, because that is what is going to help us improve. You can see where to go there, the matchbook.com/promo/survey. You can go to the pinned tweets with Sully introducing exactly where to go for that on the Matchbook Betting Podcast or the Matchbook homepage, the pinned tweets there. So please take our content survey and be as brutal about Steve Jones as you like. Right. Let's kick off. But in all seriousness, do that, because that is how we improve. Let's get stuck into our opening contest. It is the Becher Chase, 1:30 at Aintree. Jonesy, because you're the handicap king, you can kick us off with this, and then as we're firing out our selection, Deasy can give us some prices. But who do you fancy in this, Jonesy, and why?
Well, I think it is a great race, and the 3 at the top of the mark. I liked, when I was looking at it earlier in the week, I like the look of LeBrule, but I think the price is a little bit gone there, and he's similar to Kimberlite Candy, Walk on the Mill, who beat Kimberlite Candy in this race last year. And they're all a bit of a muchness for me. I was tempted by Callet Mad, who hasn't run for nearly a couple of years, but I think he's well handicapped. But I'm going to go with 2. You know what I'm like in these big races, Tom. I always like 2. And the 1, I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who will say that cannot win. But ASO is way overpriced for me. And I know he's got to prove his stamina. But I think he's run 4 times over 3 miles. They've been in the King George. They've been in... the one he ran really well in was what used to be the Racing Post Chase. I think it's now the Betway Chase at Kempton, and they held him up and he ran on. And it was also the Charlie Hall. He was 3rd in the Charlie Hall last year. So I'm going to take a bit of a chance with him. He was in the National last. He was being prepared for the National, and that shows you that they're thinking that he has got a chance of staying. And what sort of price is he, Deasy? He's about 25, isn't he, or something? Is he on the screen, or is he dropped off?
He's not quite 25. He is 20.0 at the moment.
I think that this is a class horse who's been. He's spent most of his life in Grade 1, Grade 2 races. I thought he ran a lot better than the final finishing position in the Paddy Power Gold Cup when he was running on at the end. I think he's well worth a chance at this trip on a flat track where the fences don't tend to make it. These days, they're jumping so often. I don't think it's the test of stamina that perhaps people think it is. So I will go with him. And if it rains a hell of a lot, I think Smooth Stepper is overpriced as well. I think he's around the same sort of mark. So they're my two. I would have a bit. Certainly, I would have more on ASO, more on the place, and a little bit of a saver, win and place on Smooth Stepper.
Both similar sorts of prices. Just a quick question off the back of that, Jonesy. What ground are you working on Saturday at Aintree?
Soft, I think it'll be probably. It's a lot of sleety, wintry storms around on Friday, and it's already been raining today. So I'd say it'll be soft.
Yeah, so I'm going on soft as well. I was much keener on the chances of Give Me a Copper, who's my selection in the race, who wants to go fresh, but is a brilliant horse fresh. They've had his win tinkered with as well. I'm a huge fan of the horse. I just worry a little bit about conditions. It's my only slight niggle. If it gets very testing, I'm not sure. Interestingly enough, last year when he won the Badger Ales or the Badger Beers, whichever one it is, they then said, we'll go Becher. And then they didn't, and they ran him somewhere else. I know what they're doing. They think of him as a national horse. I think now's the time to get him. My enthusiasm be slightly tempered if the ground doesn't stay with a bit of good in the going description. If it's very testing, I worry. If it's soft, good to soft in places, I'd be a little bit happier. Put it that way. Jumps like a stag. I think you like the fences. What price is he, Deasy? And then you can kick off with your selection.
Give Me a Copper is 12.0. You seem to tip a horse with copper in the name every week, Tom.
Because of this. Good, you, Deasy. Don't encourage him, Steve Jones, please. So, all right, lovely. 12 points. Sorry, what was it? 12.0. What was 12.
it? 12.0.
12.0 for him. Who's yours, Deasy?
I had ASO picked out as well for all the reasons that you said. I think that he is well worth a go at this trip. I think he's a great jumper. The only question is, will he stay? But I think he's a high class horse. The other one I picked out is Jessica Harrington's horse. Now I think he is. I've always had him down as a great jumper. He's after being bought as well by the Whaley Cones, which kind of piqued my interest. It's his first time in Aintree, but he like I said, he's a good jumper. He has been running in all the top races in Ireland over the last 2 years. I think it's very interesting. He's gone over here. He's 20.0. I think he's well worth a small win bet and a little cheeky little place bet as well.
Some chunky old prices that are going up. Don, are you looking towards the very front of the market, or are you looking at bigger prices?
So I just had one thing there as well, just before Dan comes in, is that I would also put up, because we're an exchange and you can do this, I would place Leigh LeBroy. If LeBroy is going to be about 2.5, maybe around that for a place close to 3.0, I think he'd be a good place, Leigh, because I watched this race last year. He didn't stay at all. He was beaten, I think, 4 out. No, he kept going, but he was never going to win. I think this is going to be 4 places, so you're getting there's a nice chance that he mightn't make top 5, top 6. He'd be a nice little place as well, but it'll be a sharp price.
Yeah, he's well found in the market. He's carrying a fair bit less weight, I think, than last year, because he really edged down the weights. And I suppose if he's going to get back into the national, he might want to go close here, because that's what he's going to be being aimed at.
He's down 9 pounds, but I think he could have bottomed himself in that 4 miler a few years ago. I think he hasn't looked the same horse since, and I probably place laying him as well in this, just for the crack. That
just to go against a horse, but that's what you can do with Matchbook on the exchange. You can lay him, you can place lay him.
Yeah, that's it for you. Exactly.
Don?
Yeah, look, I do like ASO as a horse. I just what Steve was saying about his stamina. Like in that Charlie Hall chase, he travelled like the most likely winner to the top of the horse. I backed him that day, and and in backing him, you were taking into account that he might not stay. And for me, he didn't stay, and that's a Charlie Hall chase at Wetherby, over 3 miles dead. This is 3.25 miles at Aintree, and when they get to that second last fence and start going up on soft ground, I think you really have to get it. Look, at the same time, he's a 16-1 or a 20-1 shot, so absolutely you can see why I have a go, because I agree with Steve, he's a classy horse. I just worry because he was in the Grand Sefton as well, and I was thinking the Grand Sefton would be an interesting race for him at the shorter trip, but obviously they're going to give him every chance to stay. And maybe if they're thinking of him as a national horse, they're thinking he's going to have to stay 3 1/4. He's going to stay 4 1/2 or 4 1/4. But no, I think last year's winner is going to take the beating again, Walk in the Mill. Like he won with a fair bit in hand last year, and he got pretty badly hampered at the first fence. He did well to recover, and then he stayed on. Like he's a horse who just does what he needs to do, and he gets in front. And last year he did exactly that. Look, he is £8 higher now than he was last year. But Kimberline Candy, who finished second to him, I think he's 16 pounds higher, I think, than he was last year, because he won the Classic Chase at Warwick in the interim. So, and he's a shorter price than Walk in the Mill. But you know that Robert Walford's been training him for this race, and it's a race that does foster repeat winners. Hello Bud won it a couple of times, I think, once as a 12-year-old, once as a 14-year-old. And this, like, Always Waning, won the Topham a couple of times. I think 3 times Ultra Gold won the Topham. So it is these types of Grand National fences races, besides the Grand National itself, with the exception of Tiger Roll, obviously, they do tend to foster repeat winners. So they've been training him for this race, I'm sure, from this day last year. And his run in the Sodexo Gold Cup, his first race of the season, was much better than his run in the Badger Ales Trophy last year as his prep for this race. So I just think he goes into the race in good form. And the £8 is a bit of a worry, but I thought he won with plenty in hand last year's 10, which is fine for the race. Just back at the track on the ground, trained to the minute. I think he's. I thought he'd be close. I agree with Micheál about LeBroy. I think he's not the right favourite for the race, but yeah, I think Walk in the Mill is he's got a big chance.
We're after losing Tom there. So Walk in the Mill is 7.6 at the moment, Don. He's after being well backed as well during the week, and he was a winning nap for you on this podcast as well last year, as far as I know.
Was he a winning nap?
Yeah,
Jeez,
he was. You put up with your best bet, and he duly obliged. So
it nearly all ended at the first fence because the horse fell in front of him, and he did well to survive. So yeah, I think I just think horses for courses, going back, train for the race again. And whether he won with £8 in hand last year, I'm not certain, but he definitely won with a little bit in hand and more in hand than the winning margin. So yeah, I think there's a lot to like about him.
Lovely stuff.
Walk in the Mill, Walk in the Mill. It does foster repeat winners, as you say, for the Becher Chase. Let's kick on to the first race we're going to be looking at from Sandown. I love this race, the Henry VIII Novices Chase. It hasn't produced many 4-year-old winners in the past, but then going through the history of it, plenty have finished second. Actually, not many have tried in the last 10 years. I could only find about 5 of them, and a couple have finished second. Deasy, are you looking at the 4-year-olds that get that useful allowance, or is it the older horses that are of most interest to you?
Oh, I think this is the hardest race of the weekend to pick the winner of. And I settled on one of the 4-year-olds. I settled on Gala, ridden by a good man, Gavin Sheehan. I just thought he was very impressive. No, he's dropped down from 2.5 miles to 2 miles, but I thought he was very impressive the way he just jumps, and he'll go from the front. I think himself and All Mankind will go from the front. And I think that he could possibly make all, because I think he'll outstay All Mankind. But it wouldn't be a very strong opinion, because himself, Eldorado Allen, the Hitman, and All Mankind are all, I'd say they all could be high class horses. And even Phoenix Way, he could spring a surprise as well, because he, in his 3-run race last time, he was the least fancied of him, and I thought he won with his head in his chest. So I will just put up Gala because he's 8.4, he's the biggest price, and I thought he looked the best jumper. I think he's very fast over his fences.
He's 8.4, is he?
I'll just rattle off the prices there quickly. So All Mankind is 3.45, and he's been on the drift. Hitman is 3.9. You have Eldorado Allen, then is 4.7. He's been the money horse so far. Gala is 8.4. Then you have Phoenix Way 14.5, and Tamarack the Matan is 14.5 as well.
Galore is bigger than I thought he'd be. But when you introduced the battle up top between he and All Mankind, I'm out to take you on. I agree they'll both go forward, and I think All Mankind is a quicker, slicker jumper than him. And I think they'll both try and go forward. And I think All Mankind will have them all in trouble from an early part of the race. I love the way he jumps. I think this track's going to suit him. I think he'll ping over the railways, and I think I know you look at the history of 4-year-olds, you won't see a winner in the last 10 years. I think he's a proper chaser. They didn't put the hood on for his reappearance. They whacked it back on for his first start over fences. He looked absolutely brilliant at Warwick, and I'm a huge fan. And I think that's a fair price, the one you've given. I think anything above 3.0 is fair enough for All Mankind. So he'd be a pretty strong fancy in the race for me. Donn, what do you think?
Yeah, look, it's a hell of a race. I agree with Micheál. It's and they're going to go fast. Like you can add Hitman to the list of front runners, so they're going to go pell-mell. And over those railway fences, it's going to be some side. I'd say that the Novices taking on those 3 railway fences. I think Eldorado Allen could stalk the 3 of them, and he could be the one. I think it could be set up for him. We saw how good he was behind a fast pace that Gumball set the last day, and I think Gumball might have beaten him. It's impossible to know. What do you think, Tom? You're kind of
I interviewed Robbie Power after it, and I think he thought he was going to come off second best. Yeah,
like Gumball was traveling very, very well, and like I was thinking Gumball might be underrated, but horses who fall at the second last traveling well don't tend to be underrated going forward. But no, the time of the race was very good, which to me was key. And Eldorado Allen ended up winning with plenty in hand. He beat Stormy Allen the time before that, and Newton Abbott, good horse, a mare of Paul Nicholls now. The Sullivan Bloodstock horse was it Willie Mullins. And I just think it might be set up a bit for Eldorado Allen. He jumped very well the last day at Cheltenham. And I think if he can jump and just jump up in behind the 2 or 3 front runners, because, they're going to go a million. I agree with you, Tom, I think. But they're not going to lead All Mankind, are they? Like, whatever leads All Mankind is probably going too fast. And I can just see Eldorado Allen sitting in behind. Colin Tizard's horses are in good form now. He had a slow enough start to the season, but I think did he have a double? I think he had a double yesterday. He definitely won.
He had a double today. Today
was it? Yeah. So yeah, I just think he's a well, they're all progressive, but I think he's a classy horse. He's proven his class, better over fences than he was over hurdles probably, and has the potential to go further. And I think more than that, the way the race is going to be run, or probably going to be run, should suit him.
Put up by Adele Morenon on the Match Betting podcast at Cheltenham at 7.5. And Donn thinks he might go in again. Jonesy, strong opinion on this or no?
I'm with Donn, to be honest, because I thought that he would have beaten Gumball. I thought Gumball was very much the front runner who was going in long to his fences, and then he got to the second last and he asked him to go exactly the same again, and he put down, and to me, he was just starting to empty, and I think Eldorado Allen would have picked him up, but that's irrelevant. I thought he jumped very well. I thought he's a classy hurdler, and I like the fact that he's run twice over fences. The likes of All Mankind and Hitman have only had the two wins, one each. They won the debut, if you know what I mean. So more experience, and they're gonna go fast. I think All Mankind is the kind of horse who'll look very good on his day, but if he nudges one and they start to, they're going to be sitting on his tail at the very least. Horses like Galore, who I think is only that price because of the worries about the softer ground, because he's a really nice horse. I can't have All Mankind. I think he's a horse that will look very special one day, and then maybe not so much when the pressure's on, as he did a little bit over hurdles. So I'm on Eldorado Allen.
A bit, actually, as you're saying, a bit like Nuba Negra did in this race last year for the same connections. He looked really flashy when he won at Warwick, and then, but then anyway, All Mankind is going to win, and you look silly, Jonesy. So I guess that's the Henry VIII. The two, Donn and Jonesy, agreeing with Eldorado Allen. Deasy and I are taking each other on with some front runners in that. We're going to skip straight forward to the feature on the day, which is the Tingle Creek. Most importantly, what price Altior, Deasy?
1.89 and going down. He's at being the money has come today. He's just stopped the mark at 1.89. You've Little Logged in at 5.6, Grenadine 5.8, Rouge Vif 10.5, Brewing Up a Storm 26.0, and Castle Grace Paddy at 32.0.
There are a lot of our Matchbook National Hunt horses to follow running on Saturday and Sunday, and one of those is Grenadine, who is my horse to follow, my chaser to follow this year. But I can't back him for a Tingle Creek, even though I, during the podcast, said he'll run in a Tingle Creek. I can't, hand on heart, Jonesy, what do you think about that? I can't have him to beat Altior, really, Grenadine. I can't, not with Altior 1.89. That's kind of fair enough, I think.
And LTO is one of the great 2 mile chasers, but he will be 11 in less than a month. And his form last year wasn't up with his brilliant best, but it still might be good enough. It's just, do you want to go in at odds on a horse that might just be going down slightly, and against young horses like Grenadine, like Rouge Vif, who have got that progressive profile? For me, it is a no bet race, because if the ground had been a little bit better, I'd have chanced Rouge Vif, because I thought he was very impressive at Cheltenham last time in the handicap. He is stepping up incredibly in grade. But for me, it's one to watch. I'd love Altior to win, because I think he's a fantastic horse, but I certainly don't want to bet him at odds on.
Fair enough. Not going to have a go in every race. Donn, do you have a bet in this?
I fully agree with just about everything Steve said. Like, you want to see Altior race. You love these good horses coming back. You couldn't back him at odds on for, I think, Moscow Flyer is the last horse aged in double figures to win a Tingle Creek, and it goes for the Champion Chase as well. Same stats, same horse, Moscow Flyer, the last horse in Sky Mass in the 70s. So look, it's hard to see what's going to be. Like, Grenadine will have to improve a fair bit, and like, I agree with you, Tom. He's a lovely horse. It's interesting that Harry Cobden is riding Grenadine, maybe because Harry Skelton rode Politolog in the Champion Chase, has just decided to leave him on him. But Grenadine, like, we kind of know how good Politolog is, and he's a previous winner of this race. He won it 3 years ago. Whereas Grenadine's the one who's got potential to improve again. And again, similar to Steve, if the ground was better, Rouge Vif would definitely be a horse of interest, because he just jumps so well out of good ground. Like that, the handicap that he won at the October meeting at Cheltenham, his jumping was so good. He was really, really good that day. I know it was only a handicap, and handicap gave him a mark on 160. So that's up and a contender for Grade 1 honours. So he's just a nice horse, but we probably won't see the best of him again until maybe in the spring when the ground gets better again. And interesting, Pat Fahey sending Castlegrace Paddy over. He's a classy horse. Soft ground would suit him well. He probably won't beat Altior, but he might outrun odds of 34.0 or thereabouts.
Deasy, you got a bet in the race?
Not really, no. I think Altior. I don't think they'll get near Altior. I think that he's had a nice break now, and he's only really had one bad run ever where he lost his surname, and surname's ideal conditions. So, I'm the lads, like Rouge Vif would have been my bet if the ground was better. The ground has got to go on from good to soft, so I'd leave him off, and happy to watch Altior win.
I think there's a way of placing this race. What's the biggest price Altior will trade in the run, given his traits? Anybody?
I think they're on to him now, aren't they? They know he hits his flat spot. It's a bit like Big Bucks. You're watching Big Bucks waiting for him to go a price and running, and he never did, because everyone knows he hits the flat spot and then runs on again.
But I just wonder, given that he is now, rising 11, as you say, I just wonder if there's a chance he'll trade odds against in the run, and if it's something you can do on. I totally agree with you. I know exactly what you mean. These horses that hit their flat spots, people go, well, we know he's going to do that. There was a race last year, though, where I thought he is beat, and he did trade a little bit bigger. I think he went to odds again. So I just wonder if it'll happen.
There have been a few. Wasn't he 8-1 in the Champion Chase 2 years ago? Didn't he go 8-1 going to the second lap?
Would have been, yeah.
That, maybe I'm wrong, but that's just in my memory that he went that big. Yeah.
I think there could be an angle playing it on that way on the Matchbook exchange. I'm going to be sat there. I think technically we're not supposed to bet in the racing TV studio, so I won't be doing that. But if I was allowed to, that might be what I would do. Anyway, moving on, the feature race is the Tingle Creek, and we haven't really come up with anything conclusive, but there you go. I think that might be the way I'll play it anyway. But we're all thinking Altior might win, but not getting too involved. Back to Aintree we go, and kick on to the Many Clouds Chase. Hey, I tell you what, Dees, it's a pretty good renewal this year. How did Santini right at the top of that betting?
Santini is right at the top of that betting at 2.5. You have Native River at 3.15. Frodon is 3.5. Lakeview Lad is 17.0, and Keeper Hit is 20.0.
Jonesy, come on then. Give me a strong-ish opinion about these staying chasers, these Gold Cup candidates.
My strong opinion is that I think there's reasons why you can take them all on. And for that reason, I'm going to be brief, because I think Frodon would have been a good bet on better ground. If it goes too soft, I'd worry a little bit about Frodon. Native River missed the Gold Cup because of a tendon injury. How ready is he going to be? I know he won the race last year. And Santini, I think that this is a bit too sharp for him. Aintree he's quite a sharp track, and he seemed full of stamina when he was runner-up in the Gold Cup. So in the other two, Keeper Hill and Lakeview Lad have got a lot to find. So I'm going to pass it over to the other guys.
Fair enough. This is the race I was weakest on because of I was going to be all about Native River, and then I went back and thought, oh, why didn't he run in the Gold Cup last year? And then that put me off. Otherwise, it would have been him at the prices. But I don't know. What's going to lead over the first couple of fences? Who out of Frodon and Native River is going to win that battle?
I'd imagine Frodon will, and I'd be kind of warm enough on Frodon now, to be honest. I think Santini is always weakest on his first run. He was like, he only barely beat McGinty last year on his first run. Native River, like he said, he won the race by 33 lengths last year, but he beat Black Horton, and I think the other two horses fell or something. He's a great horse, but I think Frodon has his performance last time was absolutely unbelievable. He's race fit. Now, there's not a lot of juice in his price. He was a big earlier in the week. He's after coming in a bit, but if I had to back one of them, Dwayne Jones is saying that none of them are going to win. So if I was going to back one of them, I'd back Frodon.
Frodon for you.
One of them has to win, so I'll stick with him.
Donn?
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, really, Tom. I agree with Steve again. We agree with Steve a lot tonight on the track for Santini. He like you're talking about horses trading and running. Santini is going to trade bigger in running for sure, because down the back straight he's going to meet those fences and he's going to get outpaced because Frodon will be piling it on in front, and we know now that he stays 3 miles. Native River is probably going to be shuffled along in behind Frodon, and Santini is going to be behind them, and probably as the race is going on, because of the sharpness of the track, coming under a little bit more and more pressure. Now that the run from the second last fence across the track over the last and up to the line, that's when stamina will kick in, and that's when Santini might just get going, and he might have enough, again depending on the ground, he might have enough in reserve to be able to get up and beat them. But that's to me is the fascination of the race, and it's definitely a no bet race for me. It's a race for watching how it develops, because Frodon, you can see he's got everything in his favor in terms of race fitness, in form, and track. So even though he's very good at Cheltenham, you'd imagine Aintree will suit him very well as well. And Santini, he did win the Sefton hurdle as a novice hurdler, but it's different 3 miles as a novice hurdler versus 3 miles as a chaser. And the Aintree track, we know that the fences come up quite fast. It is a lot sharper. So I think Santini will get out of his ground. It's just a case of whether he will have enough real estate then from the second last or the third last to be able to stay on and catch them. But yeah, I think that's and again, how good is Native River going to be in his first run back? He is good fresh, but Steve was saying after his injury, how right is he going to be, or how well is he going to be?
Dees, what price is Santini again?
2.84.
Okay.
Sorry, 2.48.
2.48. I like your angle, Don. I like that. I think that I can see him he will definitely trade bigger than that. Just the Cotswold Chase, I thought coming down the hill he was run out of it, and then off he went again. Quite like that.
Yeah, and that Sandown race that Micheál was talking about, in which he beat now McGinty, like he was, I don't know what price he was in running in that, but he was a short SP, and he was a lot bigger in running. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that could be the way to explore that Many Clouds Chase. A good renewal it looks to be as well. Back to Sandown we go for the London National, which now isn't at the end of the day. They've moved it a little bit further forward. I don't know if that's directly linked to the utter carnage in this race last year, when the Sandown 7 were found and the race was... It was a very strange incident, but it's now a little bit earlier. Anyway, we digress. I digress. Don, you can kick us off with this. What do you think, London National-wise? Is it something you've got a strong fancy in, or not necessarily?
Yeah, look, Cloudy Glen kind of did what you expected him. You've been expecting him to do for a long time at Fontwell last time, and he travelled really well and he stayed on really well. That was over 3.5 miles, but I remember at Sandown at the February meeting last year, he travelled like the winner to the end of the back straight, and he ended up getting beaten by Desha Awa, who's Philip Hobbs' horse, but also in the Trevor Hemmings colours, and he just didn't find as much as it looked like he was going to find. And maybe he's proven now that he can stay 3.5 miles. So 3 miles 5 at Sandown, the Bet365 Gold Cup distance. You'd think he should get it, and if that was his seasonal debut, if he puts in a run like that and travels with the verve that he travelled that day and sees it out as well as he did, then he's the right favourite for the race. But I think Classic Ben has probably been trained for this race. He ran in the non-race last year, and he goes well at Sandown. He was behind Cloudy Glen that day at Sandown, but I just thought he shaped really well in his first run this season at Exeter. And he's still a young horse. Like he's still got plenty of potential for improvement. He's won over 3 miles at this trip back at the February meeting last year, the season before last. So I just think he's a horse who's shaping up to put in a close to a career best performance. The ground should suit him, and he's a horse who stays and jumps well. So I think he's got plenty in his favour. Classic Ben.
Classic Ben and Cloudy Glen prices, Dees?
Cloudy Glen is 2.9. Classic Ben is 4.3.
Fair enough. I really like the fav here. I like the fact that the master staying handicap Chase rider was booked a long way out when he probably could have gone elsewhere. He was keen in that race that you mentioned, I thought, Donn at Sandown, and I think he's just learned to settle a bit better. I thought the rise for last time was fair enough. There's not as much juice as I'd like in his price personally, but he'd be my, not overly strong, but he would be my selection for the race. And I definitely will have a little bit on him at that price. For all, I wouldn't go crazy because there's a case for him being a wee bit bigger, I thought, but I think he'll win. Jonesy, what about you?
Yeah, when I saw the entries for this race, I was looking at Regal Flow because there was a lot of entries in this, and he would have been a big price. And obviously, a lot of the horses were also entered in the Becher Chase, and that's the way a lot of them have gone. And with the 7 runners, you're restricted in the place market. But I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Regal Flow go well at a big price. He's got form at the track, and he ran better than perhaps the finishing position suggests last time over this course, and in a veterans chase that I think of competitive races. But I'm with Donn again for win purposes. I think Classic Ben is the one. I disagree with Cloudy Glen. I think £11 for winning that race at Fontwell last time is a massive chunk for a horse who hasn't been consistent and perhaps hasn't found as much in the finishes. Perhaps sometimes he does. And the other thing in that race, doing fine, the jockey dropped the whip quite early on. So I think everything fell into place for Cloudy Glen, and I take him on with Classic Ben, who likes the track. Donn mentioned he won over 3 miles a couple of years ago. He actually fell in this race last year when he was favourite before all the carnage with the Void race. So I think back on the softer ground, a run under his belt, stays very well. Classic Ben for me. He should be favourite in my opinion.
Donn and Jonesy, it's just it's
like
a beautiful thing.
It's
a love affair. It always feels like you could hug each other.
Handshake before we started, just to.
I can imagine. You've got your own WhatsApp group, haven't you two?
We had a fearful argument about ASO. We nearly didn't come on because of it.
What price is Regal Flow, Decent? And take it away with your selection as well.
Regal Flow is 20.0. I have no real opinion on this race. I don't really fancy any of them, so I'm not going to put a bet on that.
Fair enough. Let's kick on to the Grand Sefton. Not an easy one to solve by any stretch necessarily. 3:15 at Aintree. Jonesy, you can kick us off with this handicap. I'd let you kick us off with the Beach and the Grand Sefton. Nice and easy.
Just over the big stuff. Yeah, I think Creve Hill is got a great chance. I think he's overpriced. He's a horse that has run over these fences in the past in this very race a couple of years ago, and he was only a 6-year-old, and he seemed to jump them fair enough. He just perhaps wasn't quite ready for that sort of test, and he's improved. Last season he did very well. He won at Wetherby and Haydock. He was very progressive. His form did tail off a bit, but I thought he ran a lot better than the form book suggests in the Old Roan, which was a good race this year. He was up with the pace a a long way out, and he lasted a lot longer than the other horses that were up with the pace. I thought that might just bring him on. I really quite like his chances, Creeville. He likes the ground. He jumps well enough. I don't see what there's to like. There's other horses ahead of him in the betting that I'm not so sure about, the likes of Springfield Lake and Modus, and certainly Lord de Menil need a lot further than this. I think this could easily just be a sighter for the Grand National fences. So yeah, I'm keen on Creeville.
Oh yeah, nice one. Okay, Creeville is 12.5, Steve.
Yeah, great price.
There you go. Happy days. Donn, who'd you fancy?
Yeah, look, I do like Springfield Lake, actually. So Springtown Lake. I thought his run the last day against Modus was very good in beating him, and he beat him well. But Modus got £9 for that. But even more importantly, I think the ground is going to be softer on Saturday than it was that day, and Springtown Lake just was under pressure from a fair way out and did well to stay on as well as he did to finish second. I just think on softer ground, like he was pulled up in the 3 mile handicap chase at the Aintree Grand National meeting last year, but that was on good ground. I think he handled Aintree well the last day. It's different, obviously, going over the Grand National fences, but I always think that it's a positive. If you have a horse who goes well on the mile-made track, it's a positive for both tracks because they're both flat left-handed, for all that the Grand National course is more galloping and obviously has different types of fences. But I just thought it was a nice run back. It was a nice season of debut at Springtown Lake. Look, you can see Huntsman's Son going well. He was really impressive in winning at Weatherby the last day when he just quickened up between the last 2 fences and went away from 2 for Gold. 2 for Gold probably didn't enhance the form on Saturday in the Ladbrokes Trophy, but that was obviously over a longer trip, so maybe he just didn't fully see it out. But Huntsman's Son, like he's likely raced, but he is a 10-year-old, and the handicapper gave him £9 for that win the last day at Weatherby, which was, I thought, you definitely wouldn't have expected any more anyway. So look, he's favoured, and he's favoured on the back of a good run, and Modus is high in the betting as well. Again, going into the race on the back of a good run, but he's another 10-year-old who got £9 for winning the last 10. I just think Springtown Lake, he's a younger horse. He's potentially still well handicapped on the Rock 142, and he should come on for a seasonal debut, and he should do better on softer ground. So what price is he, Micheál?
He's 9.4, Donn, and he's been backed all week. The heavier or the softer the ground has got, the more money that has come from.
Yeah, not surprising.
You're spot on.
9.4 it's still fair enough. I can see him enough shorter.
Yeah. I narrowed this down to, I think, was 8 horses I had on my my shortlist. I'm actually going to put up 2. I have backed Bo Bay already. I backed him earlier in the week because he was third in this last year off a pound higher, and I can see that he might have been laid out for this. He's a nice old horse, but my strongest bet would be Senior Citizen, Alan King's horse. He's 7. I think he's a very nice jumper, and he travels very well. And he won at Fakenham very well last time out. I think Fakenham was probably one of the toughest jumping tests around. And again, he's a young horse on the improve. I think he's a nice enough price. He's at about, I don't know, he's 9.4 as well. I'd fancy him for a nice win bet and a bit of a place bet as well.
What price is Springtown Lake, Dees?
9.4.
Okay. See, Jonesy doesn't. I know he doesn't. We're just at odds today, Jonesy. We're at massive odds together. I do like him. If the rain comes, I like him a lot. I think he could relish that test. He's a beautiful jumper of a fence. He's fairly treated off this mark. I'm with him. I think he'll. Yeah. I think, can we have a match bet together with him and Creve Hill, Jonesy?
Oh, absolutely.
You have to get 6 to 4.
Yeah, no problem. I'll do.
You get that up in the side feed. I don't know.
Yeah, the Stanley Jones match bet. What does the winner get, Steve?
That hat behind you.
No, the winner has to cut his hair, lads. That's
Yeah, the winner gets to cut the loser's hair. That'd be a good one.
Moving on.
I just have one more actually, just because he's looked at my notes here. Didero Vallis came 5th in this last year, and he's down 2 pounds up. Last time out, he was held up in his race, and that was the first time he was held up in 9 runs. He usually front runs, so he could be prime for this as well. So maybe he's another one at a nice price that you could be looking at. So that's 3 now for the race. That's a real Steve Jones special.
Yeah, and 2 reserves as well. 2 reserves.
Yeah.
Right, a fiendishly difficult December handicap hurdle at Sandown. I'm going to kick us off, if I can, with Nicholson, who had a couple of entries. I think he had one at Warwick. This horse is going to win a handicap off this mark. He's a really good horse. Ollie Murphy in his stable tour at the start of the season said he's up there with the best I've had. And he's in here off mark of 136, I've got in my head, something like that. I mean, he's better than that. He's definitely better than that. When he won at Wincanton, I thought we were looking at a really good horse. And it's going to click for him. I think he's a fair old price as well. I was very interested, actually. I was going to make him my best bet of the day if he'd run in the other engagement, but he's turning up here in listed company, and I think he could really take advantage of them. He was disappointing in the intermediate hurdle he ran in last time, although he's beaten by a very good horse. I thought he'd fare better than that, but I just think they think him in a handicap here could be a very, very decent little ploy. Am I looking at a half decent price, Dees?
9.0, Tom.
Lovely. Very happy with that. Very happy. What do you think?
Doesn't matter, because I tell you about this now, lads, right? I'm going out for points on Saturday. Okay? I'm going out at 1:30 and place a few bets. We're in the pub then from 2 o'clock to 4. But the bet I'm going to place is a good chunky one on Mr. Coffee. Because Mr. Coffee is going to win this, pulling a train, and I'm going to collect my winnings and go home and bring the missus home a nice beef Saturday instead of bringing her home a nice bag of value. There isn't much value in his price. He's 3.15. But he is going to just win this, no bother. Easy.
You tell you what, she's a lucky girl, isn't she?
Yeah.
Beef Saturday.
Beef Saturday. She likes the beef Saturday from the Chinese down the road, and that's what she's going to get now with Mr. Coffee's winnings.
Because you can't eat value.
You can't eat value. I brought her home a bag of value before, Donn. She wasn't happy.
Out the door. Out the door with that value bag.
I thought you said a bag of Valiant. I got very confused. Right, value, good.
Value.
Value, good. I genuinely thought, yeah. No, you can't. Mr. Coffee. What price, Mr. Coffee, Dees?
He's 3.15, which is...
You cannot eat value. Deadly Donkin, are you eating any value?
I don't know. I think I'll have the beef Saturday. I like Eglinton Desai here, actually. I think she's an underrated mare, and I like a lot of the Sullivan Bloodstock horses joined Paul Nicholls from Willie Mullins. They seem to be taking a run, don't they? Like Stormy Ireland needed a run. Duke de Genève ran a massive race, but still probably ran as if he would come on for the run. And she ran pretty well for a long way in the Wincanton race, the Mares Hurdle, on her first run for Paul Nicholls. She's a classy mare. She won the Mares Novices last season. The season before last, so in March 19. And yeah, I just think she's a filly who has the potential to be a fair bit better than a mark of 146. She's had her first run back after a wind operation. This will be her second run back, which I think that's always it's not a negative anyway. And Angus Shaleda, he's claimed £7. Interesting that he's riding. He rode a winner there yesterday, and he looked pretty good to me, claiming £7. So that seems to be fine to me. So yeah, I think she's got plenty in her favour. Soft ground will be good, and yeah, 2 miles in soft ground is pretty much close to optimal for her, I'd say. So I think she's about what she's about 9.0, is she?
She's 8.4.
8.4, yeah.
We'll probably get 9.0 all right when all the money comes from Mr. Coffee then. So.
Yeah, good. All the value will be gone.
Jonesy, what do you think?
I'm going to pass on the beef satay, but I'm all over Mr. Coffee as well. He looked unrideable last season, but they clearly done a bit of a job on him. Won over course and distance last time when he was dropped right out. And I half think that they knew he was very, very well handicapped, and they just didn't want him to win too far. And the interesting thing with this, Totterdown always flies off out in front, return to hurdles. That's going to help Mr. Coffee. That's going to help tow him along. He's gone up £10 for that win last time, but he could go up at another 10 easily, I think. I'm coming round, Dees. I'll try the beef satay, but I'm not looking forward to it.
Oh, it's very good in Greentown. Very good.
There's I'm sure that Weatherby's haven't had beef satay as the name of a horse go, so I think there's an opening there for you, Dees, if it wins very nicely.
Just they won't have that much. I don't know that I could buy a horse.
That is our Saturday.
I'd be happy with it.
That's Saturday, done and dusted. 7 for you from Saturday. We can move on to the action on Sunday now. We're going to start with John Durkan. Now, of course, it's worth saying we don't know exactly what's going to line up, but from Willie Mullins' comments, it looks as though Min and possibly one other, I'm thinking maybe Allaho or two other, might well turn up. Gordon Elliott's well represented in there as well. Don, just kick us off with this, if you can, whether you think Min is a bet to win it for the third year in succession, fresh as he has done in the past, or whether you'd be interested elsewhere.
Yeah, look, he's the right favourite, Tom, I think. However this shakes down, Allaho would be a fascinating contender. And you kind of think, where's he going to go? Like, he's going to run over Christmas, probably. And if he's going to run over Christmas, he needs to be running soon enough. So, yeah, this would be the right race for him. 2.5 miles should suit him well. But I think Chris's dream is interesting, dropping back down and trip. He didn't stay the last day at Down Royal, probably. He travelled like the most likely winner and then just got out battled by the storyteller on the run-in. But Henry de Bromhead said pretty much directly after that he wouldn't mind dropping him back down and trip. And this was the obvious race. And hey, presto, he's showing up. I think Robbie Power is going to ride him as well, coming back from Britain. I think there was a piece in the paper about that. So it looks like he's on track. And this has been his target since Down Royal. He's had a run as well. As Battle Over Doyen has had, if he takes his chance on 2.5 miles, he was good the last day in the intermediate chase at Down Royal, over 2.5 miles, having run in the RSA Chase at the Cheltenham Festival last March. So he's interesting. This could be his trip. If Allaho runs, he's a horse that I think will be he'll be a player this year, maybe in a Ryanair Chase, maybe even in a King George. But I think Chris's dream, he's about a 5-1 shot or thereabouts. I think that's more than fair about him, because he's definitely going to run, all things being equal, and he's had his run, and this 2.5 miles trip is probably his optimum trip.
If I can just pick up on Allaho, because I think I'm champion of the Allaho fan club. He and Micheál Indo, as you pointed out, Don, on the Matchbook National Hunt preview, got going a little bit too far out for themselves, I think, in the RSA, and it set it up for whatever that horse was called, Deasy. We don't really talk about it. But I think Micheál Indo still outstayed Allaho, and I would just love, and I'm sure that they're trying to campaign Allaho as a Gold Cup horse. I'd love to see him over an intermediate trip. I think he's going to be at his very best. I know he won over 3 miles over hurdles on his first start over hurdle, but he's got to be best over 2.4, 2.5, I think, or maybe a sharper 3 somewhere. But I know I'd love to see him in this. I really would. I think he might need the run. I'm not saying I back him, but that's how I sort of see his season developing. The other point is I just couldn't back Min at the price. I think there's a chance this is going to be a better renewal than he's had the last couple of years. There's a chance anyway. I think it is the beating Shattered Love and the like, whoever he beat last year as well. Deasy, pick up with some prices and your thoughts.
I have no prices for this race at the moment, lads. No, sorry. So I'll just give my thoughts. I think Allaho over this trip. This is his trip, maybe 2 mile 5. He shouldn't have gone 3 miles last year. I don't think he stays, and I think he could be the one that will give Min a race. But I think it'll be a very good horse to beat Min in this. I think Min is a super horse, and it's hard to believe he's only 9 or he's 9 rising 10 now, because he seems to be around for years. But I think that he I'd say Min will take all the beating. And if he's a price at all, if he's hitting 3.0 or 3.5, I'd be interested in that, but I don't think he will.
Jonesy?
Yeah, shaping up to be a great race. And the one I like is Battle Over Doyen. Very impressed with him at Down Royal. He was taking on Easy Game, who'd already had a couple of runs this season. So to kick him out the way, I thought was pretty good, even though Easy Game probably didn't jump very well. But Battle Over Doyen is a fantastic jumper. If you take out the Flow Gas run at Leopardstown last year when he fell behind Fahim, the only other 2 poor runs were both at Cheltenham. And now in the Ballymore hurdle a couple of years ago, everyone seemed to know that he hadn't travelled over at all well. And maybe is a horse that just doesn't travel to Cheltenham very well, because in the RSA Chase, he was pretty distant in 4th, and you'd expect better. But again, 3 miles might be just too far for him. The way he won it Down Royal, I was really impressed with him, and I think it's taken the time maybe to click what his ideal conditions are, and 2.5 might be it. And I think he's very high class.
They're just going to happen upon that, because he always shaped like a stare, and he was always, even as a horse, he was treated like an RSA stroke Gold Cup horse. But yeah, just maybe 2.5 is a strip. And just on Allaho as well, Tom, I don't think they've given up on him as a stayer. Like Willie Mullins seems to think, yeah, we might try him over shorter and see how he goes, but I still think in the back of their minds, there's still every chance he'll stay. Maybe the fact that he's won his hurdle race over 3 miles and beat Minella Indo actually that day, maybe that's kind of influencing that. But I agree with you. I think ridden aggressively over 2 miles, 2.5 miles, that could be his optimal.
I think the fact they ran him in an Albert Bartlett on his second hurdle start, or whatever it was, tells you they think he's a stayer. But what do they know?
But do you not think that Cheveley Park are just trying to win the Gold Cup now, and they're just going to have all their horses go for the Gold Cup over the next 3 years?
Well, they'll just have to be patient and wait an extra year, and then they'll be fine.
Yeah, well, I think that's what they're going to do with him, and they're just going to go for the Gold Cup with him no matter what, even if he's not going to stay at the trip. No, yeah.
I think there's every chance he'll end up in it. That's how they've campaigned him to date. But maybe this will tell them something different. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. I take the point. That seems to be how they've campaigned him so far. I just love him. I'm still hankering after the fact that I backed him for the race that he didn't run in last year, and I can't get over it. So that's as simple as that. The Peterborough Chase. We'll move on. We don't know exactly what's going to show up for this. We know that I think Top Notch is almost certainly going to run. It looks as though Dolos is going to run as well. Obviously, Top Notch is going to wear a bit more weight than he was last year. Looked very good. I do quite like Dolos for this. I didn't think I'd be putting up Dolos for I think he's about 7.0 for a race over this trip. I think he's definitely better this way. And I actually look back at a few of his runs over an extended 2 and staying on over 2. I think he's well worth a go here. And I think it's interesting that he's on the face of it, I didn't think he'd have a rating of necessarily over mid 150s, but he is 160 odd now, and on his day he's a very good horse. His form, beating Kim Bailey's horse last year, is very good. His form really does stack up right-handed, and I'm coming round to the Dolos way. I remember as a 4-year-old he won over fences at Ascot, and I thought proper horse. He never really went on from that. I think this could be his race. I think 2.5 round here. At this stage of the year, I think could just be his bag, and he was a bigger price than I thought he'd be. So I will be siding with him. Steve Jones.
Yeah, if you take Top Notch out, who's won this last year and 2 years previously, it's really all handicappers, and I think the best handicap form, undoubtedly, is the Old Roan, and Nutswell won that. That was his 5th win in 6 starts, and I just think he's got an outstanding chance. If you go back to that Old Roan race, Aintree beat Clondor Castle, who came out and won well at Newbury last weekend. Back in 3rd was Itchy Feet, who was 2nd to Imperial Aura. So that the form really does stack up. And again, Nutswell was up there before losing his place and then came through. He stays this trip very well. He's going to get a decent pace to run at, you would have thought. If he was... It's the old one, isn't it? The cliche. If he was trained by a higher profile trainer than Anne Hamilton, then he'd probably be a lot shorter. And there's a bit of truth in that, I think. But she's managed to get 5 wins out of the last 6 races with him. So I'll let her carry on training. Thanks very much. And I think he's certainly overpriced. If the forecast is going to be correct, if they all stand their ground, he's going to be something like 6. So I just think that's too big. I think he's got great chance.
With Danny McMenamin already dropped up. Don, your thoughts on Peterborough? I
think that Finding D'Estravalle and Mr. Fisher are 2 horses who could be better than handicappers. At the moment, they're handicappers, but they're young, 5 and 6 respectively. Mr. Fisher, he probably wants better ground, ideally, than he's going to get. He was very disappointing in the handicap chase at Cheltenham, the big one that Cool Cody won, Paddy Power. He has to bounce back from that, but I think better ground, he might be better, but he may not get that now on Sunday. Finding D'Estravalle, he was like, his performance at Newbury last year, his first run for Venetia Williams, was very, very impressive. He beat Sully Dock, he won the handicap at Ascot there a couple of weeks ago. He's now rated in the high 130s. And he travelled really well in the handicap chase that Magic Saint won at Cheltenham's November meeting. And he just kind of made a bit of a mistake at the second last, bit of a mistake at the last. And look, he wasn't going to catch Magic Saint, but he still ran really well to chase him home. And maybe the step back up to 2.5 miles, because he has won over a longer trip in France. So maybe the step back up, and he raced that day as if he might appreciate a step up in trip. I know Magic Saint's been beaten since, but that was off a 9 pounds higher mark, and he didn't really have the run of the race that day. But yeah, I just think finding Destreval, like he's probably not a massive price, isn't he? He's around about 4-1, 5.0 or thereabouts, which I would have thought he might have been a bit higher than that.
Dees, what price you got?
Oh, sorry, yeah, he's 5.0.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a nice price. I agree with everything you said, Dan, about him. I think that he's an improving horse, and he would probably go off short the way all the Venetia horses are being backed at the moment. So 5.0 could be a bit of a value price. The horse I picked out for this isn't jocked up yet, so not 100% sure if he's going to run. But this is actually a value price selection, because we're going out for dinner Sunday, so it doesn't matter if I have a value then. But I picked Esprit de Large. I thought he was entered in the Tingle Creek, which is one I would have probably had a small bet in him at a big price in that. But he's going for this instead. I thought he was very good in his 2 wins last year. Then he seemed to lose a bit of confidence. He fell twice, but he had a good run the last time at Carlisle. Got around. He drifted on the day. He was kind of a short enough price favourite. I think he drifted out to evens before, and he ran accordingly. I think he will be tuned up nicely for this, and you're going to be getting about 16.0. So if he turns up, I'd be happy enough to have a small win and a good place bet.
Goodness me, grade 1 winner, and here he is rocking up at a grade 2 if he shows up at that sort of price. That's our previews done and dusted. Then we're going to come on to weekend best bets. As we do that, I just want to take your mind back to our podcast we did previewing the National Hunt season, and tell you there's a fair few running this weekend. We've got the Big Getaway, who's showing up in the 143 at Navan. Embittered, Declan Rix's Dark Horse. That's right, the one that ran in the County Hurdle and has run about 15 times. He's running in the 218, and then I mentioned Grenadine as well. always going to do that, Rixie. Grenadine, who runs in the Tingle Creeks. We've got a fair few of those. Lord of Carac has actually entered up a couple of times early next week as well. So he was my dark horse to follow. So he's worth just paying attention to. You can still go back and watch that, and there is still a few to run as well. And we've had a fair few winners off it as well. Weekend best bets then. Micheál, Deasy, kick us off. Your best bet, sir.
Mr. Coffee in the Lucky Last at Sandown on Saturday.
I thoroughly expected that to be the case.
Right.
Jonesy, you can't have that one now. Well, you can. No, you can. Who's your best bet?
Once again,
I was thinking of going Mr. Coffee. I thought he's a bit short for me, and Deasy's got the beef satay on it, so I certainly don't want to put the mockers on his supper on Saturday. So I'm going to Chepstow for the Coral Welsh Grand National Trial. And it's a horse we have mentioned, Disha Abba, who pulled up last time behind Snow Leopardess when held up at Haydock. Now, you can't get into the race on heavy ground held up at Haydock. And he was also pulled up in his comeback run last year, and then went on to win a couple of races later in the season before 5th in the Kim Muir at Cheltenham. I think this is a perfect race for Disha Abba, and I like his chances. So best bet of the weekend, a nice price, I would imagine.
That's a Chepstow. Donn, McClean, your best bet, sir.
Yeah, I think I'll stick with Eldorado Alan, Tom, for all the reasons that we mentioned. I think he's going to have the run of the race. He was very good the last day behind Gumball. He jumped very well. The time of the race was fast. Whether he would have beaten Gumball or not, we'll never know. But I think there's so much pace in the race. He'll have the race run to suit. He's got good form at the track over hurdles. He jumps well. The track should suit him well. And 2 miles on soft ground suits him well. So, yeah, I think he's 3rd or 4th favourite. So, yeah, I think he's probably a wee bit overpriced.
And either way now, with the two I had tossing up for this, I'm going to be taking a couple of you on. So it was either going to be All Mankind or it was going to be Nicholson. But I'll take on Deasy just because it'll be fun. Why not? I'm not taking on Jonesy, whatever happens. And I'm going to go with Nicholson. In the place market and the win market, I think if he isn't placed, I will be hugely surprised. Look, Mr. Coffee might be very well in, but I think this horse is as well. There's a lot of faith in the yard behind that horse. So Nicholson for me in that December handicap hurdle win and place. If you have enjoyed this podcast, or if you haven't, if you don't like beef satay chat, if you just want horse chat, give us some feedback. Let us know your thoughts. Go to matchbook.com/promo/survey and take the Matchbook content survey. Because in all seriousness, it doesn't take you too long to do, but it does make a big difference to us and therefore your experience as well. That is why we want to do it. So get your thoughts in there, answer those questions. You can go to the Matchbook Twitter page or the Matchbook Betting Podcast Twitter page and find it there, or indeed to that website address we put up for you there, and give us some feedback and we will act on it. Deasy, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Donn, as ever, thank you.
Cheers, Tom.
Jonesy, it's been a pleasure as always. Hopefully you're banging in the winners again this week.
Fingers crossed. Thanks.
And thank you for watching at home. We hope we found you some winners. That is it for this week's podcast. Bye-bye.